Hello everyone, we are back with another Disney review. Today we're up to 23, which is The Rescuers.
Which is how old I
1970...
am.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I was. I'm going to be the reverse of that next year. That's good. Oh, that's a
32.
very sobering thought. But
I
yeah, so
know.
this one is pre-recorded. Obviously, it's going up at the normal time, but I won't be able to reply to comments because we're recording this on the Friday, so I'm not
Is it one of
around.
those things where like now we can swear because like it's pre-recorded and that kind of shit?
I feel like I've been swearing like a trooper all the way through these, despite this being probably one of the most wholesome retrospectives on the channel, because they're all
Well,
Disney
do you know?
films.
Do you know what? Yeah, we can. But if for some weird reason someone hacks the stream and like live puts it to like channel 4 in the like, we wouldn't be able to swear. We would technically be doing wrong. So, but this
It's
they
true.
can't because it's pre-recorded.
I need to get
So
like like a bleep every time we swear, and I need to
that would be
anticipate where
funny.
the swears are going to come in, and just keep hitting it. But yeah, number 23, Rescuers, 1977, same year as The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I didn't realise that both of these films came out sooner, but I guess one was sort of like a compilation film, really, taking three shorts that they'd already made and mashing it into a film. This one took them 4 years to make, so quite a whopping amount of time on this one, as all things considered. It's based on the book series by Marjorie Sharp, which includes The Rescuers and Miss Bianca. Very loosely based, I think. They took certain ideas, but a lot of things were invented out of whole cloth for this one, I think. And to my surprise, this film was quite a significant success as well at the box office. It was done on a budget of 7.5 mil, and it made 48 mil, I believe. And then through subsequent rescreenings and things like that over the years, it kind of caps out at 169 mil. So big return on this one, which is quite surprising after rewatching it today. It was never one of my favourites, and my review has kind of stayed the same. But due to the film's success, this was the first Disney film that got a sequel. So that's quite a big deal that this is the original. Obviously, we'll talk more about the sequel in a few weeks' time when we get to Rescuers Down Under. That is going to be in how many weeks' time? 4 weeks' time, isn't it? Is it 4 weeks' time? No, hang on. 9, 6 weeks' time. 6 weeks' time. So just over a month. And that'll be a real great one to go back to because I haven't watched that in years. But we're talking about the original one today. So, The Rescuers, there's kind of a lot of stuff to talk about this one in terms of the behind the scenes, how the story developed, and how the makeup, how we started to see names being drafted in to the Disney Studios, to the Disney Animation Company, that would go on to be big names in their own right when it comes to animation, and also big household names for Disney as well, especially in the Disney Renaissance. So we'll talk all about that. We'll talk about music and favourite characters, favourite moments and whatnot. But we always kick off with our first time watching this film, or any early memories of this film that we have. So Dale, over to you. Take it away, The Rescuers.
I
Give me the history.
don't actually remember the first time I watched it. I really don't. It's weird because I watched it again today and I thought this is pretty boring, and I don't remember it being as boring as this. And it's
Mm-hmm.
weird because, like I said, I don't remember the first time I ever watched it. I remember the first time I ever watched Rescuers Down Under, and I feel like I watched that first. The Rescuers Down Under, like I said to you before, it's weird because I don't remember loads and loads about it. 'Cause it's been quite a while since I watched Rescuers Down Under. But I know it's amazing. It's one of those things. If you ask me, oh, it's good. I go, yeah, and you go, what? And I go, I don't know, but I know it's amazing. Whereas like the Rescuers is like, it's just, I don't know, it doesn't leave a lasting memory. Like I watched it very, very, like not long ago now, and it's hard to pinpoint bits because it's just quite boring. If that, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
it's but I don't remember the first time I watched it. It was when I was a kid at some point. It was there, but it never stood out to me. Um, yeah, that's the thing. It never stood out. It's a bit. I wouldn't even say dull. I don't know if dull is the right word. It's just quite. It's kind of like a lullaby, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
there, it's cool, you fall asleep, done, and then the next day you don't think about it because it was a lullaby, send you to sleep, and that's what it's like.
Yeah, it's fairly inoffensive, isn't it? I think it's just really forgettable, and I'm actually struggling to remember the first time that I would have watched this. I had it on video, and I watched it a couple of times, but there wasn't any moment where, I mean, I was born 1993, so this and the sequel were very much already out at that point. And I think I had both of them around the same kind of time in my collection, I want to say. So I had both Rescuers films, and I was like, okay, we got a first one, we got a second one. But when you watch The Rescuers Down Under, it's this film on steroids and adrenaline, and it's like, we've got great action, memorable characters, the music's amazing, it's bigger in scope, the animation's more impressive, and I think I was probably aware of that as a child, because I absolutely rinsed The Rescuers Down Under. That was one of the films that I would throw on all of the time. And I distinctly remember it. We'll talk about it when we get to it in a few weeks' time. But like the bright pink case, Rescuers Down Under, it was really visual and it was epic in scope. And then this one was just, it's like a diamond heist. We got to get a diamond out of a well with a little girl. Woo!
Like
that's adventure.
Rough, isn't it?
It's so, even as a kid, like I wasn't feeling this one at all.
I think you missed when I said it's like diamond really rough. Like when you said it's a diamond, I went like, yeah. See,
is that the best we're going for this week? Wow. A little bit like The Rescuers. This is just really fucking anticlimactic, isn't it?
Hey, well, do you know what's not anticlimactic? I don't know if it's the right time to say this now, but the intro, like I thought that was very not what you'd not what you'd expect, but I thought that was really interesting and really cool and really different. Whereas the movie, like you say, it's forgettable, it's bland. But I did think the intro was. Thing is, the intro works with that blandness because it's not moving imagery, it's stills, and the design of it, but it complements it really well. And I think that is probably the highlight for me of this, the most memorable thing.
Well, even before the intro, right back to the opening frame, we had that new logo. I don't know if you had it on Disney Plus. It might be slightly different. The bright blue logo with the white stenciled outline of the Disney castle with Walt Disney Pictures. It didn't have like the shooting star going over it, like the da 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 da. It didn't do that, but it was that image, and I was like, right, we're getting to that memorable shot, because that's so nostalgic to me. That Disney castle. I mean, we've got it on the thumbnails, haven't we? We've got it on the logo. So there was that, and yeah, the intro's quite understated. You've got that slow pan-in shot of the abandoned riverboat, and Penny dropping this bottle, and then yeah, the title sequence. It serves its purpose as a title sequence. You've got these really nice sort of like pastel artwork sketches going up, but it's also advancing the plot. We're seeing the journey that the bottle takes, and then we pick it up at the end where the mice find it and like the riverbank or wherever it is. So it serves loads of different purposes, and yeah, the song's quite nice over it. It gets you into the film, you understand what's happening, and I thought that was quite an effective use of time progressing the plot whilst also being a title sequence as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed that too. This film went through loads of different story changes. One thing I noticed as well, just a broad overview of the film, I can't quite put my finger on it. Like watching the film, the style of the animation and everything, the way that characters move, and just the tone of the film and how the plot moves, it feels very different to some of the previous ones that we've had. But then in many ways, the kind of sketchy outlines on the animation in the background, that's still all there. We'll talk about how Madame Medusa is very similar to Cruella de Vil, and I actually found out the reason for that. As there is a reason for that too.
Well,
so there's lots of similar things that we've seen, but it feels ever so slightly different in terms of the animation.
Speaking of the animation, have you ever seen like Looney Tunes? You know how they draw the humans, not like Yosemite Sam and all that kind of stuff, but like the background humans. It's very, very similar, which I found when I was watching this. I don't even know what kind of style to describe it as, but it's just a very similar. The humans kind of look like blank canvases unless they're main characters.
Yes, yeah, and you see that it's not like, is it the United Nations building? Am I right that we get to the Rescue Aid Society?
Is it? Yeah.
You've got like all different. I think it is. Yeah, the United Nations, and you're seeing people of all different nationalities walking around, and they're very. I mean, they're still cartoon characters, but they're more realistic looking. And then you get to characters like Mr. Snoops and Madame Medusa, where they are incredibly, for want of a better word, animated and very very cartoony looking. So yeah, you've got this weird mix of the two, but it kind of works. And I think that's probably the visual difference that I've seen in the animation. I was actually blown away by the character animation, especially on Mr. Snoops and Madame Medusa, and even Penny, to some regards as well, in just how fluid the animation was and lifelike the movements were, which I've never even really noticed with this film before. A few of the story details then. So the book was written in 1959, I believe it was, and then Disney picked it up, and they were working on this film and coming up with ideas from it from the early 60s, about like 1963. There was a story artist called Otto Englander who initially wrote a treatment, which, I mean, I've never read any of the Rescuers books, so I don't know if this is truly based on the story of the first book. And the plot was going to centre on a Norwegian poet who's unfairly imprisoned in a Siberian-like stronghold called the Black Castle. Later on, as the story developed, the location was changed to Cuba, and the mice were going to have to try and help him get back into and escape into the United States. Disney really didn't like this idea, though, because he didn't like the political overtones of it, and he thought it was a bit heavy for a Disney film, which I agree with, especially if you're getting into that territory, especially around that kind of time frame as well in the 60s. And then a couple of years later, like 5 years later or so, it was reworked and they did another treatment, and it was going to be Bernard, they call him in this film. I guess I got to call him Bernard, but I just call him Bernard. And Bianca rescuing Richard the Lionheart during the Middle Ages, which is... I don't know if that's like a holdover from Robin Hood with Richard the Lionheart, and they wanted to do that and probably get like another animal in that. Like, I don't know. I think both of those, I'm glad they got rid of those ideas. I don't know if the Norwegian poet is from the original book, maybe. I don't know, because that's quite a niche idea to come up with. But
do you know?
Yeah.
You know who reminds me of who? You know, what's his name with the fork? Scuttle, Little Mermaid.
Oh, you think he's like Orville, the albatross?
Yeah, they're a little similar, aren't they?
A little bit. Speaking of Little Mermaid, Madame Medusa for me was like a combination of Cruella de Vil and Ursula, a little bit.
Yeah,
with the makeup in the mirror and the just the kind of mannerisms and the flamboyance to herself. Yeah, I was kind of getting Ursula vibes a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so the story then develops. So then we're into the 70s now, and they're still trying to come up with an idea for this thing. They were going to try and Disney were going to try and make a plan of releasing A films, like A pictures, which are your big, massive scale, really incredibly intricately animated films, and then they'd follow it up with like a smaller, scaled back B film, which with like simpler animation and like easier, and they can crank them out. I'm glad they didn't do that, because that almost struck me as I don't know if this is a good comparison or not, but Disney with Star Wars. You know how you have your big episode 7 one year, and then the following year we're going to do like a little shitty spin-off that we don't really care about, and then we're going to do our next episode, and then we're going to do another shitty spin-off that no one cares about. I guess they would have tried to do that.
We didn't even care about the episodes.
No, I know. They fucked it straight away, didn't they? Right out of the gate. But yeah, one thing to note is one of the big animators in this, it was a project to draft younger animators in as well. So you had a lot of the senior animators at Disney working there still on this film, but it was more of a collaborative effort to bring new blood into the Disney Animation Studios. So they reached out to different art schools and colleges and things like that, and I think they drafted about 60 people in through various auditions. I think they had to make like a black and white short film or something like that. Then it was whittled down to 25, and I think those 25 people were hired, and among those you had some big names, one of which was Ron Clements, who's going to be a massive name when we get to the Disney Renaissance. But also Don Bluth was an animation director on this. Now Don Bluth, big name in animation, went on to create such films as The Secret of Nim and American Tail, Land Before Time, which weirdly gets referenced a lot on these Disney reviews.
I've never even watched Land Before Time. Don't even know what it is.
and stuff like Anastasia.
There was a girl in that actually. There was a girl in Land Before Time. She was born the same year that Van Halen's first album came out.
Oh, there we go. That you kind of made up for. That was more of a niche one. That was a good one. Made up for the Diamond Dave one.
But then it was taken away when she was shot in the head by her dad. But anyway, we're
Fuck's sake.
We move on.
We do move on. We move on.
I think he burnt her body as well. I can't remember.
Oh my god. Okay.
Well, it got even darker.
This ain't getting monetized anymore. We got talk of fucking child murder in here. Great. Well, that's kind of what Madame Medusa were kind of attempting, right? A little bit.
Well, what did I said last week? It's Winnie the Pooh. The dark theory behind Winnie the Pooh killing Christopher Robin, and there's a pile of Christopher Robins just burnt, and yeah. I don't know how this turned into this, but yeah.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, the idea moved on, so into the 1970s now. At this point, I think there was a recent book in the Rescuers series. It was called Miss Bianca in the Antarctic. And they thought, right, we'll set the story there. And then the new story, this shit gets crazy, involved a king penguin deceiving a captured polar bear into performing in shows aboard a schooner. What's a schooner? Let's see that. Oh, just like a ship. Okay, causing the unsatisfied bear to place a bottle that would reach the mice. Now, I guess that concept of a message in a bottle reaching the mice was kept, but they were really hung up on this idea about having this penguin villain and the main character being a polar bear, like an all animal cast. Which I'm really glad. Some of them said that the Antarctic background would have been too stark a background for the animators, like it would have been a bit boring. I don't know if that's the case. I think you could probably make it work. And what was that animated short with a penguin that we had? Was it like Melody Time or Make Mine Music?
Yeah. Didn't they?
No, or was it Saludos Amigos actually?
Didn't they save the whole penguin villain for 1991 with Batman? Didn't they?
Well, that and Wallace and Gromit, The Wrong Trousers, had a penguin as a villain.
Yeah, they saved it for those times.
The animated film Pebble and the Penguin had a penguin cast and had Tim Curry voicing the evil King Emperor Penguin in the film, so it's not unheard of. You can do it.
Equal penguins. There are no equal penguins. Equal evil, even.
Ultimately, like, this is a quote from I think one of the animators who said, our problem was that the penguin wasn't formidable or evil enough for the audience to believe he would dominate the big polar bear. We struggled with that for a year or so, and we changed the locale to somewhere in America, and it was now a zoo, and we tried to come up with something with the bear in the zoo and needing to be rescued, but that didn't work either. They were really hung up on this to the point where they actually got a voice actor in. So you had the jazz singer Louis Prima was brought in, and the character was renamed Louis the Bear. I wonder how he got that name. And then there was a lion character as well. They had songs composed for this. There was a polar bear. They had all the same characters, and it was going to be set in a zoo. And they were just really hung up on this for ages. Ultimately, this was, entirely dropped, and you just get a really quick scene in the final film where Bernard strays into a zoo, doesn't he? And then you hear a lion roar, and then the two of them run away, and that's it. That's the only zoo thing. But that's where it stemmed from, was this huge, completely different story where they were going to have voice cast of polar bears and lions and whatnot and craziness. So I'm glad they ditched all of that, because I really don't think that would have worked for the film. I think the whole conceit of the animal kingdom, these mice helping real people in real situations, is kind of the crux of the Rescuers, and I think that works really well. And I don't think it would have worked if it was like an all animal cast. I don't know what you think about that, because I know a lot of Disney films before this have done like an all animal cast.
Because the thing is, it's kind of like it becomes a very different movie.
Yeah.
In that sense, kind of like Lion King, it's very, it would be very different. And I just, like I said, I think it'd be a very different movie in that sense. It's very animal based, but there's a kind of different kind of charm that it has this way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Now here's the Cruella de Vil comparison, because the whole time, I was even conscious of this as a kid, But watching it again today, there's so many, especially at the beginning where you have Medusa speeding away in the car, and the car looks very similar to Cruella de Vil's, like almost like a hearse-looking car, isn't it? That she has. I don't know cars. I wouldn't know what make and model it is, but the way she's like frantically driving and she's sort of like bearing over the steering wheel. I thought there was a scene where you get like the crazy eyes, and I may have forgotten. Is that in this movie, or was I forgetting? Was I remembering?
What with the
that
crazy
wrong?
where she's driving? Yeah.
Yeah, you do get that. Yeah, so it's very similar
Yeah.
to Cruella de Vil, isn't it? Especially in that
Do you know
in the
what's weird as
initial
well
part
though?
there.
It's I think there's because what is it where Penny sees her and freezes, where she like freezes when she makes eye contact with her.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I'm thinking Crazy Eyes and that it's like Medusa, isn't it? Like the actual Medusa
Yeah, that's a good shout
turning people
actually.
to stone and taking, with the eyes and the stone and the freezing people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think those are definitely subtle references. They've got to be.
Well, Madame Medusa, yeah, that's a good shout actually. I never even thought of that, but yeah, there's got to be a connection to the name there. The villain was based on, so Madame Medusa was based on a character called the Diamond Duchess, which is in the sequel book Miss Bianca. And again, this was a character that went through quite a lot of changes. So she was initially going to be named the Grand Duchess, and the voice actress they had was Phyllis Diller. And then a month later, Ken Anderson, who was the conceptual designer, was adamant that he wanted Cruella de Vil to be the villain for the film, and it was going to be a sequel film as her as the villain. And he was drawing loads of sketches. It was Cruella de Vil, and she was like, because the setting was then chosen to be the bayou in Louisiana, which is obviously where it is in the actual final film. But he had Cruella de Vil in like alligator leather clothing, because obviously she's obsessed with animal skins. There was a sketch of her in bell-bottom pants and platform shoes, and I think there was one of her like driving the scooter maybe as well. So all of these concepts eventually made it into the final film, but one of the animators, a few of the animators were like, we're not animating Cruella de Vil again, and we want a new character as the villain. But I'm guessing some of those strands from Cruella de Vil made it into the final film. As I said, like the comparisons, her mannerisms, the way she talks, the way she acts, is that very over the top kind of quality, very similar to her. And the car driving and everything like that. It's very close. It's definitely very close to me. She's different enough, I think, but there are some visual comparisons definitely.
So you know how in Snow White, you know the they're not crows, they're what are those birds called?
In Dumbo, yeah, they were crows.
No, Dumbo, Snow White with the
Vultures.
that's it, vultures. There you go. So like I get reminded of vultures. You know when Thingy's in the water and she's like driving through the water. You know the two crocodiles.
Yeah.
I get reminded of like the vultures with that. Like, you know, you've got these two kind of like just animals are a bit evil, a bit like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I get reminded of that quite a lot whenever when I saw it.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. Like the henchmen. I mean, the vultures weren't even henchmen, were they? In Snow White,
Yeah,
they were just kind
it's
of there.
just I think that kind of just I say random. You know, just the two kind of there's two of them. They look exactly the same. It's a very I don't know, but you've seen it. I've seen it in a couple of things before, like a lot of different kind of cartoons where you see, like, you might see a couple of crows, like there's just two of them, and they're kind of like they don't say anything, but they're kind of a bit evil, and then like I've seen it a few times in things, and I think it's just quite cool to be fair.
And that might be the comparison I'm thinking to Ursula as well, because Ursula has the two pet eels, doesn't she? And in this,
She
Madame
does.
Medusa's like, "Oh, my precious pets," and then Ursula's like, "My
The two
babies,"
eels
you know.
that don't die in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, they get fucking evaporated in the actual Little Mermaid
Well,
film. They get
yeah,
disintegrated.
you attack them, and you attack them, and you attack them, and they don't die.
I know.
They can't die.
I know.
I know they're there to, you know, make sure you know, so your magic goes up, but it's still annoying that every time you kill them, they wake up again. You're like, can you stop doing that?
I'm just trying to find the name. Oh, that's it. So this is one of Disney's 9 old men. So like back in the early days of like the early Disney films, you had like the 9 animators. They were called like the 9 old men, and then so not all of them worked on this film, but one of them was Milt Kahl, and this was actually the last film that he worked on for the studio. And
Milt who?
he apparently Madame Medusa's appearance was based on his then wife. He divorced her a year after this film, so that's probably why Madame Medusa looks really unflattering in this film, perhaps. But he wanted his final character to be his best, and he ended up doing all the animation for the character himself, apparently, which is a tremendous task. And her movements are fantastic. Like, they're really smooth. They're quite lifelike. Like, I was watching this and thinking they must have had a live action stand-in again for most of this, because not that it felt rotoscoped, but that really kind of naturalistic human animation, and I don't think we've had that for a while with some of the other Disney films. Yeah, you could maybe argue something in like 101 Dalmatians with was it like Roger and Anita and Cruella de Vil, perhaps. But well, it's probably because we've had a lot of animal ones in between, in all fairness, isn't it, since 101 Dalmatians.
To be
But
fair,
I don't know, there was
this one,
something about the movements in this one. And another thing was the how the animation itself progressed, because from 101 Dalmatians they used xerography, where they could just copy it and they didn't have to like hand paint all the individual animation cells. Because it was still in its infancy, that's why the lines around them look really sketchy and kind of really noticeable. But the technology had developed by the point of this film, so they could still use the same process of xerography, but it smoothed out the lines a lot more, so it didn't look quite as frantic or sketchy as maybe some of the previous films that we've reviewed have.
and it does stand out. To be fair, it does look a lot better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it does.
It's just very. I think a lot of things about this movie. It's just very sort of like, when you watch a movie and it's not bad, but nothing stands out. You go, cool. Like, that's the kind of vibe I got from the animation, from the music, from just everything. It was quite there. Cool, well done. Moving on.
Yeah. A lot of people. I was sort of like looking at the talent for this one as well. A lot of people came out for retirement for this thing. It was either the last thing that a lot of people did, including, I think it was Mr. Snoops as well. I think it was him, the voice actor. This was his last film role. He died. I think it was before this film was released. Actually, I think he died in 1974, if I remember rightly, and this was released 3 years later in the 77. But you had like sound effects artists, apparently like a really prolific one called Jimmy McDonald came out of retirement to do this. He did a lot of the Dragonfly stuff. When they realised they could play with that and have a few funny jokes with the Dragonfly, they really upped the Dragonfly's character. Really reminded me of Sparks from Spyro a little bit, just because it's a Dragonfly. And
do you know what it reminded me of?
Go on.
What animal? It's not a dragonfly. He's in Princess and the Frog. He's like, hello, how are you doing? Like, yeah, but what's the bug?
He's from Louisiana. He's French.
I swear down, he does not
he's
sound
the
like that. He
lightning
sounds
bug.
Indian.
He's the firefly, Raymond.
With the light up bum. Yeah. Swear he sounds Indian.
Raymond? Like,
I swear he sounds Indian.
He's not Indian.
I ain't seen the movie for a long time, but I remember him being like, hello, how are you doing? I tell you. Like, that's what I remember. So, I need to watch it again.
You're wrong. You're wrong. He's French.
I mean, hey, to be fair, like, if
he's Cajun, isn't he? He's got like the French lilt to his accent.
If we're going for what they sounded like, that should have been Aladdin through and through. Should have been like, I found the lamp, I found it in my hand. Give me the curry lamp.
Oh, fucking hell. Hey, you're the one getting cancelled on this one. I've already been cancelled. You're getting cancelled even more. God help us when we get to our Aladdin review. Fucking hell.
That'll be fun. Also when we get to Frozen. But anyway.
I've completely lost my train of thought now. Apparently the co-director on this film, John Lounsbury, this is cheery, died of a heart attack during the production. So Art Stevens, who was an animator on the film, was then selected as the new co-director. So a lot lost with this one. I've already talked about the people that were recruited, sort of like Out the 60 and Don Bluth being present and everything like that. So that really just sort of before we get onto the music, let's sort of like go back over the character. What do you think to the character? Let's go with our main two in this, the rescuers themselves. We've got Bernard and Miss Bianca, with Eva Gabor returning, obviously played Duchess in Aristocats.
I do like them, and I think the chemistry between them is really, really great.
Yeah.
But they do feel very, when you like have a prototype of a character, they do feel very like you could have done more. With both of them, like I say, like a prototype, which is kind of what this is in terms of Rescuers Down Under. Like you said, it's like this on steroids. It's a very, this is your prototype. Oh, it was well. Let's do another one. Oh, we know what we're doing now. It kind of thing, and that's how the characters felt. But I do really, really like the chemistry between the two of them. I think it goes really well. It's quite romantic in ways. In like there's parts where they're in. What is it? There's a scene right at the beginning, near the beginning, where they're sort of like together. They're just kind of sat down, and I just think they work really, really well as characters together. And it's the same with, I think, Medusa. She's a very standout villain. Essentially, she is one of the most underrated, I would say, in a lot of Disney movies. People don't really remember her. Maybe that's just because they don't really remember the movie.
Yeah, I think if you throw the name around Madame Medusa, people will be like, "Who? What film was she in?" Like, it's not a household name. Oh, we lost Dale. He will be back in a second. I'm just going to carry on real quick, but yeah. Oh, there he is. Yeah, right on cue. Let me bring him back in. There we go. He's back.
I'm back.
Yeah, no, I really love the main two in this one, Bernard and Miss Bianca. The great voice actors as well, Bob Newhart and Eva Gabor. And I do think the two really have a lot of chemistry, maybe more so in the second one. And when you said that they don't really do much with the characters in this one, I agree. They're just kind of along for the ride, but they actually do something with the characters in the second one, in Rescuers Down Under. So I guess you can view this as this is setting the stage. There is a attraction there. There is some chemistry there, and you can tell that she's sort of like a high class lady, and Bernard's like he's the blue collar worker, isn't he? He's the janitor at the place basically, but proves himself through this and through the next film as well. They were originally going to have it where I think they were both already going to be an item, like a married couple, but then they changed it where they're not together and they both get thrown into this adventure together on this mission together. And I think that's a better way to go, because it builds that chemistry, it builds that attraction between the two, which obviously then in the sequel gets a really nice payoff to it. So
do you know what I've just thought? Bob Newhart, who's obviously still alive and kicking, he was in Big Bang Theory, wasn't he?
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
he was.
He was.
And
yeah.
Which is set in Pasadena, which is where Van Halen come from.
Oh shit, we got a triple whammy today.
That's a better one.
you are getting you guys are getting spoilt today.
That was a good little deep cut as well. It was great.
Yeah, no. Why don't you have like a Van Halen podcast with that kind of trivia, with that kind of knowledge? You should do it.
I can just pull it out of anywhere. Someone give me a name. It's kind of like my cousin can do. If you tell him the date you were born, so January 29th, 1993. It was 3, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought 2, because you're 2 years old. It's because you're at the beginning of it. Anyway, point I'm making is, if you said that to my cousin, he would literally just say Tuesday, like he would know the day it was. Like he just knows these things. I feel like this is my superpower. It's similar. It's my superpower. I go, hang on, I have a Van Halen reference for this.
Yeah, some people are crazy with dates. I don't know how people do it. It's just, encyclopedia of knowledge. Any other characters that jump out to me in this one? I mean, we've mentioned Madame Medusa, who's great. Like, she's my favorite character. Mr. Snoops as a sidekick, like he fulfills that sort of like Mr. Smee, cowardly buffoon kind of role to the villain. Like, I get that, but
the crocodiles. I like the crocodiles.
The crocodiles are cool, yeah. Or was it Nero and Brutus, isn't it? Pretty cool.
I can't remember, but yeah. I like the crocodiles.
I want to see how did a lowly pawn shop owner wrangle 2 fucking massively full adult alligators? Like, how did that happen? I want to see that movie. If we get an origin story with Madame Medusa where she's misunderstood and she has a hard life and a hard upbringing and has to make ends meet and barely makes rent, or she's living hand to mouth basically. in the spin-off film that they're going to do in about 20 years on Madame Medusa. How did she get those alligators? I need to know.
You wonder if they'll do a live action?
Oh God, no!
Imagine,
Please, please, no.
imagine,
I don't want
imagine.
to because I can imagine it will happen. They'll probably go through all of them, and it will kill me. It will actually kill me.
They will, and that's the scary part. Never watching Lady and the Tramp. Never. That'll make me sad.
I keep forgetting that came out. It was straight to Disney Plus, wasn't it? That one.
Yeah, a lot of the straight Disney Plus ones we do kind of forget about though.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do just kind of happen, and no one really pays attention.
I'm looking at any other characters in this one. That's it for me. What like Penny? Penny's fine. I remember it being like really whiny and stuff, but I watched it again now. I'm like, she's. You feel bad for her. You want to see her get adopted and have a good life. Like she serves that role. I think that Cody in the second one's a bit more engaging as a human character. He's a bit more sort of like rough and ready, I suppose, but like it's fine. I think that's one of the things that the director wanted as well. Like when they were coming up with all these crazy storyline ideas, he said, "Look, I just want a simple story. Just a little girl gets kidnapped and the mice have got to rescue her." That's
what everyone wants, isn't it? A little girl getting kidnapped. That's what we all want.
And then mice rescuing her. Sure.
Yeah.
The point is she gets rescued at the end, and that's a nice
ending. When you explain it like that, though, it sounds very Cinderella, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's the Disney trope, isn't it? The animal psychic. Yeah, I guess so. So then it brings us on to music, and this is a cool reference which I didn't know about. See, this is one of the best things about doing this retrospective. Not only do I get to go back and watch these Disney films and talk about Disney, which is great and wonderful, and I love doing it, I find some little deep cut trivia things that I never even knew about, and that takes us on to the music. So apparently originally, Sammy Fain was hired to do the lyrics and wrote 2 original songs. One was called Swamp Volunteers March and one was called The Rescuers Aid Society. So I guess, they continue to use that one in the film. But then afterwards, there were 2 songwriters that were brought in, Carol Connors and Anne Robbins, who were a collaborative team together. And they came up with pretty much all the songs in the film, really. They did that one. It's quite a nice song. It's very different style music, and you wouldn't really think it would fit the Rescuers, I suppose. They came up with the music that plays over the title sequence. They did that song "Tomorrow Is Another Day" when you've got the albatross flight. I think there was another one as well. Is it called? Oh God, what's it called? There was another one in the film too. Someone's Waiting for You, I think the song's called.
Yeah, that's the one I was just going to say. That's probably one of the top for me.
Yeah, Rescue Aid Society. I think that song actually comes back in Rescuers Down Under. I think for me the best one. I really like Tomorrow Is Another Day. When I was watching this again, I was like, oh, that's coming back to me. It sounds like a James Bond title, doesn't it? Well, I'm thinking Tomorrow Never Dies.
It does, yeah.
No, I'm thinking of 2. I'm thinking of Tomorrow Never Dies and Die Another Day. And I'm combining those 2 in my head. To
Tomorrow's Another Day.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's Bond.
I think what they should do a James Bond as an old man in a wheelchair.
No.
And it should be called... No, hang on. And it should be called Tomorrow's Another Day. And then it's not because he dies.
They already killed him off in the last James Bond film, so we're fucked.
I've never seen a James Bond film, and you know this.
Oh well, there you go. I've just spoiled Bond 25 for you.
Oh wow.
Speaking of James Bond, there is a link to this apparently. A scene of Bianca and Bernard preparing for their adventure, with Bianca choosing outfits and Bernard testing James Bond-like gadgets, was cut for pacing. So there you go. There's a bit of a James Bond scene originally in this film. But yeah, the music's nice. And this is the trivia, which I didn't realise. Well, it says, for the first time since Bambi, all the most prominent songs were sung as part of a narrative, as opposed to by the film's characters. I swear there's got to be another example of that somewhere. I don't know. Has it
Wait,
really
what?
been that
Say
long?
that again.
So it says... this is according to Wikipedia. It says, for the first time since Bambi, all the most prominent songs were sung as part of a narrative, as opposed to by the film characters, like the actual film's characters. I'm trying to
Wait, what do
think.
you mean?
So like the Miss Bianca and Bernard don't sing any of the songs themselves. Like the film characters don't sing the songs.
Right.
The song is like in the background, like part of the narrative, I guess.
Yeah, I get.
Like
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Tarzan. Think of like Tarzan with like the Phil Collins music. But I'm trying to think if there's got to be between Bambi and this film. There's got to be an example of that somewhere, hasn't there? I would say. I'm actually looking at all the previous films now to see if I can think of any. Huh. I don't know. I mean, you've got some. You've got like Alice in
No,
Wonderland that's like sung like the title sequence, isn't it? That's not by the film characters, unless it means
that's the title sequence.
exclusively like the entire film. I don't know. I never even thought about that. But anyway, the trivia. Here we go. So the songwriting duo who I mentioned, Carol Connors and Anne Robbins, they were nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song for "Gonna Fly Now" from Rocky, with Bill Conti. Now, I thought Bill Conti exclusively did that song on his own, that soundtrack on his own, but they were songwriters on it. So the main song from Rocky, dun, 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 you know, dun, 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 they collaborated on. So I never knew that. So that's an interesting bit of trivia there because I'm a massive Rocky fan. So that was cool. That was 1976. So yeah, that was the previous year to this one. I think that's pretty much it. So we've talked about the music, we've talked about the characters, the animation, and some of the behind the scenes. There is one other thing that is worth noting about this film, which is quite funny. I don't know if you've heard about this, and there are stills out there. You can find the screenshots from this. So this was in 1999, and it's a couple of days after the film was released on home video. Disney had to announce a recall of about 3.5 million copies of the film, because in the scene where you've got Bianca and Bernard flying on the albatross past the buildings, you had to freeze frame it because the frames were moving at like 1,000,000 miles a second. There was a topless woman in one of the windows in the background in the skyscraper, and I think it appeared twice because you know how like it's like a Scooby-Doo background, isn't it, that keeps scrolling, and I think it scrolls past twice. And yeah, it had to be recalled. Now I'm assuming in the I was actually going to freeze frame every single shot when I was watching it to see if it was still in there, but I think probably since then Disney have gone back, especially with Disney Plus now and the subsequent DVD releases, they've probably gone in and removed it. I'd be interested to see if it's on my VHS copy though, because I do have the original Rescuers on video, and it's probably around 1999 that I got it, if that's when it was first released. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I had one of the recalled copies and then it was changed for the rest of the video releases.
That could be worth a lot of money.
It could be. I'm going to have to go through. I don't even know if I'd be able to see it though, because you know when you pause like a VHS and you've got like all the tracking lines and it's insane to see. So yeah, no, it's funny.
Yeah.
You can find the frame out there if someone's really, really interested.
You know who Penny reminds me of?
Who?
You know you know Japan. You know the kid, the one that's randomly American.
Michael, isn't it? Is it Michael?
Yeah. No, is it Mike? Or is Michael the oldest?
No, that's John, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, the one with the teddy bear and the little autistic kid with the safety blanket thing. They similar. Am I right?
I mean I didn't get that at all, but fair enough if you did.
I did. I did. I don't know why. There's similarities.
I don't know if Don Bluth worked on the character of Penny, but the animation on Penny looks very similar to the way he animates humans in his film, because his human animation is actually really quite realistic, especially when you get to like Anastasia and stuff like that, and some of like the younger kid characters and stuff like Stanley's Magic Garden, which I think got retitled actually to A Troll in Central Park for later releases. The one that I've got on video is called Stanley's Magic Garden, but then I saw it on DVD years later and the title was changed. So, but she looks very similar to that, the way she's animated. So, yeah, I don't know. This one for me though, I mean, I guess just tying it up now. I was never a massive fan of it growing up. It was always forgettable to me growing up because I had the bigger and more bombastic Disney films, and not every Disney film needs to be like that. I quite like some understated ones, but this is just, I don't know if it's like yeah, it's a simple plot, and you know, a simple plot isn't necessarily bad, but there's just something a bit lackluster about this one. The characters don't really
It,
pop for me
what
in many
what do you,
ways like some of the other ones do. The songs aren't massively stand out in any way, shape, or form. The animation is fluid and like really well done and nice, but it's not like dazzling animation or anything like that. It doesn't really push the envelope in any respect. So
imagine
yeah.
swap this with Snow White, and this was the first Disney movie. What would the company be like?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Terrible movie, but it doesn't stand out, does it? Like, what would the company be like if this was the first one? Would the company flop?
Maybe. Well, I don't know because like the animation would have been like, oh my god, we haven't seen a film like this, so it would have still gone down
Yeah,
as like
and
the
I know it
first
did very
animated
well,
feature.
but I know it did very well. But again, would most people? The lead up in Disney, everyone remembers obviously Snow White being the first one, and the lead up is great, and it starts amazing. But if this was the first one, would people think, oh, it starts kind of slow, and you get Pinocchio, which is cool, and it just gets better and better? Or I don't know. Would there be a different perspective on the whole thing?
I guess there would be maybe. I think it would still be engaging and different enough that it would get attention, but when you've had like the caliber, even like in the last couple of weeks, like even compared to like Winnie the Pooh and all the ones that we've done before, then they were just so much more memorable in their own ways compared to this one. It's like a weird in between one. It's just you know you're scanning through and you
Yeah,
go, oh yeah, the Rescuers. I remember. I sort of remember that one. It's the diamond and the albatross, right? That's the one. So yeah, it's a strange one. Like I don't hate it, but I really
yeah.
don't love it. It is that in between one. It's bang average for me in this one. And now we've done this, I don't know when I'll be inclined to go back and rewatch this one at any point. Rescuers Down Under I can stick on any day of the week. Love that film, and there's something engaging, and it actually does something with its characters. Maybe it's just that I just don't find the story all that interesting. But as I say, like I don't mind a simple story a lot of times, so maybe it isn't that.
Do
Um,
you know Bernard?
yeah.
He looks a little bit like a Teletubby. You know
How?
what Teletubbies look like?
I know exactly what Teletubby is like. I used to
Yeah,
watch the shit out. He's a
yeah.
mouse.
He looks a little bit like Poe. Maybe just because he's red. I don't know, but I don't know, but he reminds me of Poe.
He really does. Right, I'm wrapping this shit up. We're talking nonsense now. Fucking Bernard does not look like Poe. It's
No,
ridiculous.
honestly, I feel like he does.
Oh, is it like the? Hang on. I know what Poe looks like, and I'm gonna have like nightmares now. I'm looking at. Oh, look at those dead eyes staring back at me. He really doesn't.
Well,
He's got like a
that's what
bit of
I
a
see.
mousy nose. I'll give you that, Poe.
Well,
But
there you go. See, you agree.
I'm just looking at the voice actor. So Poe has had two voice actors since Teletubbies was created.
Yeah, I know. And one of them was an Asian lady, wasn't
Yeah, she was. That's very true. Yeah.
it? Who did porn, I think. I swear that was a thing. I can't remember, but there was a weird story, something
I
like that.
thought that
And
was
yeah,
Tinky Winky. And with a name like
was
Tinky
it?
Winky, it doesn't fucking surprise me.
Well, yeah, some like urgent purple penis.
Anyway, that was The Rescuers, number 23. We will be back next week. We'll be live next week, which will be good. And thankfully, because I think it'll be a good one to chat with everyone in the comments, can you remember what number 24 is before I announce it?
Fox and the Hound.
Fox and the Hound, that is true.
Yes.
Next week,
See,
we've got
good
this
at
one.
this.
I loved this one as a kid, and I was also terrified of this one as a kid. We're going to go into all the reasons why next time.
It's
I know people that have like straight up PTSD from this film. Like they really struggle to rewatch it because it's so harrowing.
I know it's a sad film, but I have a question. It's a U, isn't it? Rated U, Universal.
It is rated U, yeah.
What was the first Disney movie to be rated PG?
Very good question. Let me see. I'm guessing The Wild's probably a U. That's not on my shelf. I think it was Bolt. Bolt was a PG.
Hmm.
Why aren't all these Disney films on my shelf? It's really bothering me. I think I've just put them down somewhere. So yeah, Bolt. I want to say. And then pretty much every Disney film that comes out now is a PG. That's just like the new go-to rating, I think, pretty much. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why all films are a PG now. Like what?
Because it's wet and everyone needs parental guidance these days.
We live in a world where Black Cauldron is a fucking U, but Big Hero 6 and Frozen are a PG. Wreck-It Ralph is a PG.
Exactly.
Craziness. Absolute craziness. Anyway, that'll do it for The Rescuers. We will see you next week for The Fox